I'm Ian Bruce. Okay, so there we go. Everybody accept that. So yeah, I'm Ian Bruce. I'm the Executive Coordinator of Peninsula Stream Society. I'd like to welcome you all to our first presentation to members session. And thanks for attending and being a member. And we plan to hold these on a quarterly basis. They arose due to the fact that the last board meeting we had, the staff reports took up so much time and the board members didn't have an opportunity really to ask questions, that we decided that we would put the staff presentations up prior to the board meeting. So the board members would have an opportunity to know what had been going on with the society before the meeting. And then we decided to open up to members because we can do this now through Zoom and we're presumably getting good at it. So I hope you enjoy it tonight. Plan to hold these on a quarterly basis, and then there'll also be one associated with the AGM. So and it's to keep our members up to date on project programs and events and to get your feedback and new ideas for projects. So, you know, we're always looking for good ideas, new ideas. There's one about living Christmas trees we may do, and we need some ideas on beaches that need to be cleaned up and things like that. So this is your chance to connect and to feedback. So we're going to record this session and it'll be shared with the board members and others potentially. I haven't figured that out, but we'll probably post it, a link to it on our YouTube channel. So I'd like to, on behalf of the society, I'd like to acknowledge that we operate on the traditional ancestral territories of the Kwangwin and Wasanich peoples. We acknowledge the ancestors, hereditary leaders, matriarchs, as well as the stewards of these lands. Give thanks for the privilege of living and working here. I'd also like to thank the support from generous donors who are provide the opportunity for our activities. And we're what I call a professional environmental stewardship organization. And that is, we are professionals providing stewardship opportunities for the public and others, doing restoration, habitat restoration, community stewardship, i.e. volunteers, and environmental education. So we've grown from a staff from 3 to 5 now, and we have a long list of in-kind donors as well as ones that have contributed to the upcoming online auction, which runs from this Saturday, February 26th to March the 6th. So there's more details at the end of this presentation. I'd just like to say that May 2022 is the 20th anniversary of incorporation. So that's pretty exciting. We had quite a nice party on our 10th at Centennial Park. So we'd like to plan something in July, potentially. And if you're out there and you'd like to help us plan that, please contact Francesca. And we'll try to plan an event that's not an AGM, but kind of more of a celebration and a fun event, perhaps at Centennial Park. So some format and housekeeping. This is an informal meeting style as opposed to our webinar type style that we've had before. So if you could please keep your microphone muted during the presentations. If you forget, we will mute it for you. And each staff member will present and then open the floor for a few questions. So you can either type your questions into the chat feature or wait till the presenter has finished and you can unmute your mic. And we'll end the session with a longer Q&A period, an open discussion. People can bring up ideas. So I would like to introduce my staff. We have Katrina Adams, who's our freshwater biologist and coordinator, doing water quality, GIS, and things fishy on the freshwater side of it, and she'll be presenting first. And Carmen Pavlov, who's our beach program or beach education program coordinator, who is the all things volunteers on the beach, and many of you beach volunteers, of course, know Carmen. And then Kyle is not here today. He's off on a much deserved sabbatical to Seattle with his partner and so I'm going to give Kyle's presentation. So I'm going to try to do Kyle's presentation. I'm going to do as good a job as he could. And then Francesca, of course, our stewardship coordinator. Kyle's a restoration coordinator. Francesca's a stewardship coordinator, longtime staff member, and she's got a presentation of her own. So on that note, I am going to say, I'm going to turn it over to Katrina to start her presentation. Hey, you.
Right, so just let me get the slide deck queued up here. Might just take me a couple seconds. Bear with me here. Okay, is that visible to everybody? Great. Okay, take it away, Katrina.
All right, if you just want to skip a few slides over to the start of my presentation. Perfect, thank you. Oh, there we go. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Ian, for the introduction. For those of you who don't know, my name is Katrina Adams. I am a fairly recent hire with Peninsula Streams. I started as a co-op student in the summer and then was hired full-time on in the fall. My background, I've got a background in biology, focusing on freshwater and marine sciences. I also have a degree in GIS, and I just recently completed a degree in the Restoration of Natural Systems program at UVic. So yeah, a wide variety of different skills, and I am the Water Quality and Freshwater Biology Coordinator with Peninsula Streams. So what I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about today is what I've been working on for the past couple months, and then introduce some of the projects that I'll be working on for the summer, as well as for the rest of the year as well. Next slide there, Francesca, thanks. So the thing I've been working on for the last 2 months has pretty much only been grant writing. So obviously extremely important part of project planning. So figuring out what we want to do for the summer and the year, and then securing the funding for it. So these are just some of the grants that I've been working on and have sent in. One of the big ones being with the Habitat Conservation Trust Fund, which will help increase our stewardship capacity. So we hope to establish some new groups within different watersheds, help support them with equipment, as well as stream keepers training, and then yeah, some other support as well. So a big part, or that grant will go towards that. And then another big one that we applied for was with the Eco Action with the Environment Canada. This one was multi-objectives, all with the goal of increasing climate resilience and flood mitigation within Greater Victoria. So the part of it will go towards stewardship as well, which will help support our goals for this big project. And it also included several large restoration projects within the Hagen-Graham Kiwanis watershed, as well as Millstream. I'll talk about those in just a second, as well as the stormwater management practices portion. So this component will include going into the Keating industrial area and working with engaging small business owners there, and sort of looking at what their current stormwater practices are, and sort of raising awareness of what's happening with that within that system, as we monitor several sites within that area, and over the years have definitely discovered several contaminant issues within the water, as well as the sediments. So yeah, hoping to engage the business owners in that area to help reduce that and mitigate that. And then other stormwater management programs, including rain gardens as well, which Kyle's section will involve more of that. Of course, Pacific Salmon Foundation, a longtime funder for Peninsula Streams, several applications have gone into that for programs. The water quality program being a big one, including data management, which I'll talk about in a second as well. And then the Millstream and more restoration in the Kiwanis watershed. One interesting project that's a little different from the other ones is one that is a collaboration with Anne-Marie Daniel from Nature R&D. She has this amazing idea of creating, it's called the Rush Initiative, and it's creating a data hub and a portal that will house many different data sets, such as water quality, and shoreline stability, the location of rain gardens and other green spaces, all coming together to help decision makers make more informed or better informed decisions about development and other projects, all with the goal of increasing climate resilience within our area here. So some really amazing projects. And yeah, just working on securing the funding for that. That's been what I've been working on essentially. But some of the projects that I've been working on, if you want to switch to the next slide. One of the big ones that I've been working on since I started with Beans and Streams is within the Hague and Graham Kiwanis watershed. So it started with doing a big habitat assessment of Hagen and Graham Creek, where I walked many kilometers within both of those creeks and assessed the habitat basically for cutthroat trout in particular. So this resulted in like a large variety of different habitats, but also I was able to identify many opportunities for restoration to help improve the fish population within those two creeks. If you want to switch to the next slide. These are just a few examples of some of the variety of the habitats within the Hagen and Graham system. It shows a wide variety of some really amazingly beautiful areas. The one on the left is one from Centennial Park in Graham Creek, shows really great pool habitat for cutthroat trout. But then on the far right, the Willows Way was definitely an opportunity for restoration. It's a highly impacted reach of Graham Creek. But interestingly, we had found a pool with many different cutthroat trout juveniles in there. So there's a great opportunity for restoration in that area. Skip to the next slide. So the next steps for this project, I'll be completing a final report for the Hague and Graham assessment that will be coming out in the end of March. And then from this, of course, we'll be able to identify and pinpoint restoration opportunities within this watershed. This will be followed then by determining the current cutthroat trout population within those two streams. So we'll be doing this by electrofishing. This will be coming in the spring. And then we will also be looking to establish or revitalize the Kiwanis Community Stewardship Group. And so we'll be working with them and supporting them to do this restoration, as well as other activities as well. So if there's anyone interested, do contact us. Skip to the next slide. Now, a really great opportunity arose from this assessment was on the former Woodwind Farms. This property has been recently returned to the Sartlip First Nation, and they invited us on to do an assessment of the 3 reaches of Hagen Creek that are on that property. So we walked the 1.2 kilometers of this creek, and it really came to light that there is some opportunity, or many opportunities for restoration, as this is a highly impacted area from agriculture. And the Sartlip First Nation is interested in revitalizing this creek to help improve the cutthroat trout populations with one goal of being food security. So it's a really great opportunity. And we're working on securing funding at this point to do the major restoration on this land. Can we just skip to the next slide? So of course, the funding is a big part of it, but and then the work itself will involve reconnecting the floodplain to Hagen Creek. This will go a long way in helping to mitigate flooding within this watershed. We also hope to enhance fish habitat within the tributaries, as well as the main stem of Hagen. So this will involve building riffles and pool structures, as well as complexing with large woody debris. And then we'll also be doing a large amount of riparian restoration as well. You can just skip to the next slide. So another big project that I'm involved with and writing grants for is with working and doing restoration within the Millstream Creek watershed. This watershed experienced severe impacts from the November flooding and revealed many opportunities for restoring habitat that was damaged from the flooding, as well as trying to find ways of mitigating future floods. And so one opportunity is to reconnect the floodplain that's just below the Atkins Road Fishway. Here we hope to reconnect the floodplain, construct some overflow channels, at the same time as enhancing the fish habitat for coho salmon, as well as cutthroat, and then riparian as well. And so from this, we'll also be working and doing some more habitat assessments, so upstream of Matson Lake, as well as below this fishway, to continue identifying future restoration. We'll also be establishing a Millstream stewardship group as well. So they'll be helping us support us in these projects. There will be lots of volunteer opportunities. And then, yeah, we'll be doing some other assessments, some fish enumeration, and a lot more can be done in this particular watershed. I just want to skip to the next slide. Another really fun thing that we're doing with the Millstream Creek watershed is pit tagging. So this involves inserting a very small tag into small coho. We actually did this just this morning. We tagged about 2,000 fish. These coho salmon will be released into Millstream Creek within the next few weeks. And we basically, how does the pit tag works is we install an array or some sort of monitor essentially at the fishway. And then as the fish swim underneath of it, the array registers the tag that's inside the fish. And then we can sort of keep track of when the fish leave, as well as come back when they come back to spawn. So yeah, we'll be releasing the 2,000 fish in a few weeks, I believe, and then we'll be tagging some more fish over the next year or so to try and really enhance the coho salmon population within this creek. I'm going to skip to the next slide. So other restoration projects that are in the works, we'll be collaborating with the Friends of Swan Creek to do some habitat enhancement within Swan Creek in the park. We'll be enhancing and constructing riffles and pool structures. We'll also be doing the same within the Colquitt's main stem. We just had a meeting with Saanich out there the other day. So lots of exciting things happening within that creek as well. Then really exciting opportunity of collaborating with the bees, where we'll be doing some restoration within the Halliburton watershed. We're having a meeting next week as well to determine exactly what we'd like to do, but we'll be doing lots of invasive removals and habitat enhancement as well within the tributaries of that watershed. Skip to the next slide. So I'll just briefly mention or talk about the water quality monitoring program, which I also help support. One of the big ones that Peninsula Streams itself works with is doing water quality, long-term water quality monitoring in Tatayat, Hagen, and Grand Creek within Central Saanich. And with the help of these amazing volunteers, we've been doing this water quality monitoring for several decades now, 20 years or so within Hagen Graham, and then I think about 10, 11 years in Tatayat. So having this long-term data really gives us a great picture of what's happening in these urban streams and helps us identify when issues arise that we can then bring the attention to the District of Central Saanich. So of course, being urban streams, issues are common, but some of the ones that we deal with are, we get a high sediment input within Grand Creek. The photo here shows Grand Creek within Centennial Park. This photo was taken in the fall sometime. So really, really highly turbid water, of course, not so great for aquatic life. We'll be investigating this more. Other issues, of course, within the Keating industrial area, as I mentioned, we have several sites within this area where we have identified high metal concentrations on occasion. within the water as well as the sediments. So hoping to help mitigate that a little bit with by working with the business owners. And then consistently high fecal coliform values for both Tateit and Hagengram. So this is definitely common within urban streams, but still a concern. So we're hoping to do more mitigation through rain gardens and other activities similar to that as well. If you want to skip to the next slide. So some of the things that I'll be looking at and working with the water quality monitoring program is a big one is data management. Several people have come to me and asked me about this. Data management is definitely a big issue. We have so much data, but it's inaccessible. So I have found a possible solution of working with DataStream, which is a really great open source database. We'll be uploading our own data up there as well. I'll show you an example in just a sec. It's a really great visual way of looking at data, easily accessed, easily to share and download the data as well. So giving a lot more opportunities for people to look at it and to actually use it. And so after uploading our own data, look to help other groups do this the same through a workshop if people are interested. And then, of course, with the establishment of new stewardship groups, we'll be continuing supporting them through providing equipment for water quality, as well as stream keepers training modules in water quality monitoring and other modules as well. You just skip to the next slide. And so finally, I just want to show you a really quick example of what DataStream looks like if anyone hasn't seen it before. I found it a really great visual way of looking at or seeing what's happening in your sites. This is just an example from Alberta. This is pH here. So you can view it by various different chart types of scatter or bar, or whatever you prefer. It gives you many different characteristics. So this is pH. You can have dissolved oxygen or your metals or nutrients or whatever's been taken at those particular sites. And then it also includes the CCME guidelines. So these guidelines basically tell you if something is of concern for aquatic life. So if something's below or above the guideline, then there is a possible issue. And so it really is clear if there are issues happening. And you can run statistics on this. It's easily downloaded and you can attach photos. And so it's a really powerful tool, free to use. So yeah, some great opportunities for more data sharing with this. So more to come on this as well as we get our own data uploaded for that. And that's it for me. So if anyone has any questions, please pipe up. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Katrina. Yeah, if there's a couple of quick questions now, or we'll save them for the end. Anything, comments, questions?
Well, I'd just like to, it's Vic Collins here, Victoria Golden Rods and Reels. This chart is great to see because a number of us have been working on trying to improve the data sets that we're working on, particularly water flow as well as water quality, and to see Peninsula Streams take the initiative in this area and try to simplify these systems and make them accessible and work with the province and the CRD and other folks. It's a very important underlying part of the framework for going forward. So I just wanted to congratulate Ian, Katrina, and the team for taking on a very complex and difficult area of science, which needs to be brought down to the local level to have real meaning for positive results and actions. So well done on that and everything else you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Mick.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat from Karen Woodland. How do you choose which streams you gather data on and rehabilitate? Do you want me to take that one?
Sure, yeah.
That's a really good question because we have collected water quality data on most of the streams, or practically all the streams we've worked on. Whether we've kept the long-term data sets or not depends on whether there's issues with the stream and how strong the stewardship group is that's supporting the stream. So we tried to lead, but not always do all of the work. So for example, our friends at the Swan Creek, they do their own water quality and we support them. They house it on their own, but we support them with equipment and advice and some lab work. So it's kind of locally driven to some degree, Karen, but then also in the case of the Central Saanich water sheds where the industrial area is, that's a concern, that's a community concern that's quite much broader, and that's supported by the municipality. So it varies. If any group wants to work on their watershed on water quality, we're there to help them get going on it. Hope that answers your question.
I think you're on mute there again, Ian. Sorry.
Sorry. Thanks, Mick, for that comment and those kind words. I think, and thank you, Katrina, for your presentation. I think we'll segue to Carmen. So take it away, Carmen.
Great. Thanks, guys. And thanks, Katrina, for the presentation. That was excellent. Always nice to see what everyone's doing in a presentation format. So that's great. Nice to see everyone, even though once again, it is virtual. It's great to see everyone gathered here. So as many of you may know, my name is Carmen and I am the Beach Programs Coordinator for Peninsula Streams, basically just organizing volunteers, training new folks on the forage fish methodology, maintaining the day-to-day operations of the forage fish program, and doing just a little bit of social media and publications work. My background is in coastal geography and environmental studies, where I graduated from UVic in April and started up with Peninsula Streams right after that. So the Beach Program stands for Beach Education and Conservation of Habitat. And within this umbrella, we do beach cleans as well as forage fish egg surveys out on local beaches with teams of citizen scientists. If anyone hasn't heard of forage fish before, they are just simply a small schooling fish that form the base of the food chain. They eat small creatures such as plankton and then feed larger animals like salmon, seals, and seabirds. Examples of forage fish include herring, anchovy, sardine, Pacific salmon lance, and surf smelt, which are the two species that we survey for. Because they are critical to the health of marine and coastal food chains, determining their spawning habitats is actually quite critical. And this is why we conduct these surveys, which target those surf smelt and those sand lance spawning habitats, which is in the intertidal zone on sand and pebble beaches. So in this section, I'll just be updating you all on the forage fish egg surveys that we've been busy with. We've had super excellent engagement this fall or in this winter with all ages of folks coming out to our events and our surveys, and a lot of new beaches surveyed and eggs found. So we can switch to the next slide. Jumping right into it, we held 4 training sessions over the last few months, the first being at Albert's Head Lagoon on December 11th. It was actually a super windy, rainy day with like a bunch of hail and just horrible conditions, but our volunteers held out and completed the full training session. It was 9 participants. And this resulted in a new team being created for the Metchosin area, which has now gone on to survey Whitty's Lagoon as well as Albert's Head, and continue to go out and seek out new beaches in that area. Next slide. For our second training session, we went out to Agate Park on December 16th. We had another 9 participants for this one, of which about 4 or 5 went on to form a new team that has been regularly surveying the Cordova Bay area since December. And this includes Cormorant Point, Maycock Beach, and Agate and Parker Parks. We haven't yet had any positive detections in this area yet this season, but in past seasons, we have had some patchy positives. So still interested in hitting those beaches. Next slide. We did have another training session at the end of January at Esquimalt Lagoon for about 18 people. A little breezy and chilly, but overall a really great session. And the picture I have up here is some sand lance eggs, which were actually found by our Esquimalt Lagoon team a day earlier. So this is really exciting because we haven't actually found any eggs there for some time. So that's just a little visual for you guys as to like what we're actually looking for. Very small eggs in the sediment itself. Next slide. And then finally, our most recent training session was just a couple weeks back out at Weirs Beach in Metchosin. And this was for a class of about 12 kids in the biology program at Pearson's College. It was a really great day and the kids were super engaged and they're ready to take on surveys of their own. So that'll be exciting to get them going. And we can go to the next slide. The last few months have been really busy with our 13 teams of volunteers hard at work getting samples during this peak winter spawning period, which goes from about November to February here. Overall, from December to February, we sampled 18 new beaches and 20 new sites, which is amazing. The next two slides just give a list of which new beaches we hit, including Goddard Beach in Sydney, which had 44 surf smelt eggs detected. Sand Pebble Beach off Resthaven Island, which also had positive detection for surf smelt eggs. And then on the next slide, if you want to switch it, Haynes Park in Oak Bay, which came up with a positive for 1 surf smelt egg. So we were really excited about all these new beaches and super happy with all of our hardworking volunteers. So I'll just leave that up for one more second. You can read through them. But yeah, once again, those are just all of the new beaches that we have hit within the last couple months here. All right, and this slide just shows some pins as to where we have had positive detections of eggs on beaches in these last 2 months here. I have in my notes document and on the next slide, which we're going to kind of just skip through for time. It's very text heavy. There are all the names of the sites listed and the species found at each beach. So if you're interested, we can send that out a little later. But positive beaches did include Coles Bay, which was super exciting, Esquimalt Lagoon, Seaspan, Seaway Hampson, and Talista. And then the eggs pictured here are some surf smelt eggs. So you saw the sand lance before, now you're seeing the surf smelt eggs here. We are also going to be working on building some better maps. Katrina, our resident GIS person, so we'll be working on some maps to kind of better show the results of these surveys in a more visualized and just better way than just pins on a map. So stay tuned for that. Okay, you can just move to the next one. And that's, like I said, the list. So if anyone's interested, they can just, I can send that to you later on. Next slide. So volunteer hours. In December, we had a total of 162 volunteer hours for forage fish egg surveys alone. And in January, we had over 230 hours. So fantastic month. Kudos to all of our hardworking teams. It's excellent. This is one of our highest volunteer hour months that we've had on the forage fish program so far. So great work to all those hardworking citizen scientists. We have had, as I said, great results, including those new 18 beaches, and had a bunch of positive detections. So really good. The success of this program really shows when looking at these volunteer hours. That's why I kind of put them up here. We have about 50 or so regularly participating volunteers, as well as 13 active teams. And we currently have 14 kits plus the 1 house kit, and are building 4 more. So if anyone is interested in joining this program, we're always looking for new people, always looking for new beaches. It's a fantastic program, and our volunteers have been doing fantastic work. Next slide. So our program continues to grow, as I said, thanks to the support and dedication of our citizen scientists. Our total number of samples since the program began in 2018 is over 630, and we're spread through a total of about 88 beaches, and have had 100 samples come up positive for surf smelt eggs, and 11 come up positive with Pacific sand lance eggs. And in January, we had those 11 new beaches, and in February, we've already gone to another 7 beaches. So overall, the program was a huge success, or is a huge success. It continues to be with dedicated volunteers. So really pleased with that. And you can go to the next one. And this one is same as the last one, but it's just to show you like how much we have done during this winter spawning season with the numbers clearly shown here. So 73 more surveys were done, 18 new beaches, as I said, 25 new sites, and 17 surf smelt detections and 5 sand lands. So, and that's in less than the 2 months. So yeah, super kind of cool when you're comparing those two slides and then the numbers for those. So yeah, and next slide. And this is just showing how many surveys have been taken by region since 2018. Our main areas being Colwood, where Esquimalt Lagoon is surveyed regularly. We have North Saanich, Oak Bay, Saanich, and Sydney as our kind of main hotspot areas. And the teams in these areas are kind of our superstar teams and have been going out consistently over the last couple of years. And we will continue to get out and survey, reaching all the new beaches that we can. Okay, and next one. This is just to wrap things up. There's a couple communications update for you guys. We have a new e-newsletter coming out this month that covers a few of the events and projects that have been going on in the last couple months. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We also did put out a blog in January on the Rain Gardens for Headwaters program. So give that a read. It's on our website. And share it around as that'll be a super interesting project that's kind of started and will be continuing to go on here. And that's with our amazing restoration biologist, Kyle. And Ian will discuss that in the next presentation here. We also continue to slowly grow on Instagram with about 465 followers right now. And this has really helped bring in some younger volunteers for a few of our events and just getting some more eyes on our work, which has been excellent. And we've also had just a little feature in the Oak Bay News on the beach program on the surf smelt egg found at the end of January at Haynes Park or Rattenberry Park, kind of two names, or Rattenberry Beach, Haynes Park. And we can send the link around to anyone if they're interested. It's also on our Facebook. So yeah, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the forage fish surveys and the hard work of all our volunteers. That was just kind of a quick synopsis of all of what we've been up to. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I see a hand up, Jamie.
Hi there. I have a question about what you test for when you're going out for the beach surveys. In addition to looking for, eggs, do you also test for things like the temperature both in the water and on the sand, and also maybe pH balance for acidity of the water, if that's relevant? I was just curious.
Yeah, we do take water temperatures. We don't take any temperature of the sand itself, but we do take the water temperatures just to kind of see what's going on in the water. No pH at this time, though.
Thank you, Justin.
Hi there. I was wondering if your surveys for these eggs, are these for beach spawning individuals, or are these eggs that have been washed ashore from seagrass gardens or kelp beds, or like what is sort of like the metric that you're looking for in terms of productivity?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are actually looking for beach spawners. So the sand lance and the surf smelt both spawn in that intertidal zone, laying their eggs directly on that sediment. So they will come up during that high tide, lay all of their eggs, and then the eggs will stay within that sediment as the tide recedes. So super interesting strategy, because you wouldn't think that they'd want to be exposed to the elements with the tide going out, but yes, it is the beach spawners that we're specifically looking for. And it's a species that has really not historically been studied too much. And that's the impetus behind this program, is to discover where they're spawning and essentially what we can do to better protect or restore those beach habitats, because they do need these, these sand, pebbly sediments to actually have their eggs adhere to. So we want to make sure we're not putting things in like seawalls or riprap, which then of course reduces that habitat and degrades that habitat.
Yeah, and thanks, Carmen. I'd just like to say to Justin too, what does show up in the samples though is other eggs. So rock sole eggs show up, herring eggs, and that's kind of a bit of a, throws a bit of a wrench into it when you're looking at them. But if you looked at enough surf spell eggs, you could pretty well see a rock sole egg, and you go, that's not, one, or a herring egg. So yeah, the other ones do show up, but we're targeting the beach spawning eggs, as Carmen said. Things.
It's actually really interesting. So you have found herring eggs washed up on shore. Do you have records of like where those herring eggs are being found?
They were just found. There was some at Roberts Bay last year. And it's not anything that we're really marking, but there was some herring eggs that came in. We'd be very interested if there was herring spawn up the inlet, up Saanich Inlet, for example. Which hasn't happened in a few years, but yeah, we will be tracking herring if we do encounter them. So if anyone does have any records or observations of herring spawning this year, you can let us know. That would be great. It'd be part of that. I'll be talking about the BC Forage Fish Monitoring Network a little later.
Awesome. Thank you.
Carmen, there's just a question from Jocelyn on the chat. It's have you managed to get some microscope volunteers to help keep up with the analysis of samples?
Yeah, I believe Ian has trained a couple folks to help me out with the forage fish sample analysis itself. So yeah, I think we have. I mean, obviously, if anyone else is interested, we can have a discussion around that, because with the program growing, I have found that I can get backed up on samples. So it's great to have some help.
Great. Thanks. So that's great, Carmen. Thank you. And I guess I'm up next. And I'm going to give Kyle's report. So I'm going to be talking about the Pacific Stream Keepers training, funding applications, Forage Fish Network, eDNA development, beach restoration, and rain gardens for headwaters. So these are all projects that Kyle's been involved in. So some beach, some freshwater, some a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So Kyle's got his fingers in a lot of different pies, and is doing well in terms of keeping some of these more technical projects under wraps. So let's start. Next slide, please. So on the left, we have Zoanne Morton, who has headed up the Pacific Stream Keepers, I believe, since its inception in the early 90s. And she is the doyen of Stream Keepers training. So in early February, she came over and spent 3 days personally training Carmen, Kyle, and Katrina on Stream Keepers methodologies, and going through several modules, the assessment, water quality, etc. So you can see them in Graham Creek right now on the right-hand side, going through the methodologies. This will allow our staff to, like we have done in the past, like I was a trainer and Brian was a trainer, and now the new staff can be trainers, and we can have our staff go out and train new Stream Keepers groups. Next slide, please. So recent funding applications have had, Katrina's been very busy on that, and so is Kyle and Francesca and myself. So the Roberts Bay Blue Carbon, 250,000, and our Real Estate Foundation, CM Harbor, Roberts Bay application went in today, I believe, this morning. So Roberts Bay Pilot Nourishment, we've got 27,000 for that, and we're asking for 35 more from the Salmon Foundation. Portage Inlet Shoreline Restoration, Victoria Beach, we'll talk a little bit about that, and then Community Rain Gardens, and then TD, Friends of Environment, and then Sitka support for Friends of Forage Fish. And we haven't even got to World Wildlife Fund yet, but we'll be talking to Jacqueline about that very soon. Next slide, please. So some of the funders that we have that's helped us get going on our beach program, including Jacqueline, particularly Jacqueline, World Wildlife Fund, encouraged the forage fish stewardship groups. There's basically 6 of us around the Sailor Sea that are supplying data to the Strait of Georgia Data Center through the Pacific Salmon Foundation. And we're doing this all the same methodology on our beach forage fish monitoring program. We were encouraged to form a network. So we did that. So Peninsula Streams took a lead and got these groups together. We've had 2 meetings. We're co-chairing this newly minted group. So it's a BC Forage Fish Monitoring Network. And we're co-chairing with, I'm co-chairing with Jennifer Suthurst from the Project Watershed up in Courtney. So the idea is to do mutual support, make sure that our quality assurance and quality control is consistent, that there's training, that there's equipment, there's people that can support stewardship in the field, volunteers in the field doing forage fish monitoring. And right now we're concentrating on beach spawners, but to Justin's comment before, we're also have an eye on herring, and then potentially, you know, anchovies, oolakan, and other forage fish, you know, down the road. But right now we're focusing on the beach spawners. And right now it looks like we've got some funding from Sitka Foundation to help support this new network. So more will be developing on that soon. There's a meeting, Jacqueline, you might be interested, that after Jacqueline Huard's seminar, some people from Washington State Forage Fish Network reached out, and we're going to have a joint meeting coming up in March. So we're already doing hands across the border between BC and Washington State, which is great because anybody knows Washington State is about 30 years ahead of us in beach forage fish monitoring. Next slide, please. So eDNA is a process where you take a water sample and, or in some cases, a beach sample, and you analyze that sample to find out if there's DNA of target species that you're looking for. In this case, Hakai Institute has an eDNA program and is already established with a number of different stations around the whole coast. But we're particularly interested in around Greater Victoria. And one of the things that we can use it is to target where we do our beach restoration for forage fish. So if we know, we'll say, for example, there's Pacific sandlands in an area in the middle of winter, and they're close to a beach, they're probably looking for a place to spawn. So that would be an indication that perhaps there is a spawning beach that they want to access, that it needs to be built. So it'll give us a better idea of where to place and put beaches and where the fish are moving around other than finding their eggs. So we're getting involved in that. Next slide, please. And I don't see the notes are coming up, Francesca, but I guess I'm just going to wing it. I normally do. So we got a couple of projects here. You see, these are the 4 monitoring stations that we're going to have. This is near the Forage Fish Beach we're going to build at the Portage Gillette Linear Park. There's another one this is at Gorge Park in Esquimalt, Gorge Esquimalt Park, where the CRD will be putting a green shores for salmon spawn, green shores resilience coast for salmon beach spawning beach, or beach spawner spawning beach project there, as we're doing at the Victoria International Marina down here, and then over to Esquimalt Lagoon. So these are going to be the 4 eDNA sites that we're going to be looking at in this area. Next slide, please. This is the beach area, this little beach here, and this point we're going to be doing some restoration this spring. We've got all the permits, we've got the funding, and we've got the design. So it's just better, pretty well ordering the gravel and bringing it in and building the beach. Next slide. Very close to Pilp. If you just go back one slide, please, Francesca. So if you look over, oh no, we went forward.
Sorry, I'll have to figure out how to go back. Nope, I'm going forward. Oops. There we go.
Okay, so if you stop there, so I just want to say that this is Hospital Creek Estuary right here, very close to the Portage Inlet Park site. And this estuary is very highly degraded. And so Kyle had some ideas on how to stop the degradation. It was mainly from geese, but other birds as well. So next slide, please. So with the permission of the property owner and some volunteers, as well as some staff from SESI, which was great, which is the Community Economic Stimulus Initiative, folks from World Fisheries Trust that we worked with extensively. They came out and helped, and there was a goose exclusion zone. So if you look at the, particularly on the right, you can see how the estuary sediments have been degraded, and it's just a matter of the geese walking up at low tide and walking up onto that grass, walking down and grazing away on those on the sedges and things that were in that estuary sediment. So we're keeping the birds off and we're trying to rebuild. And this is going to be a work in process for several years. Next slide, please. So we're also going to be building a beach here. If you can see inside the green square, in conjunction or with the support of the scientists on the left. That's Jim Johansson, who's probably done, I don't know, a couple of hundred or more beach restoration projects in Washington State. So he's very much the guru for this. And he was up here helping us on design. He's like I say, a coastal engineer, has his own company down in Bellingham. And so this is the beach we're going to be working on this year. This area used to be Mud Bay, and it's been filled in extensively. But when it was Mud Bay, there was the Songhees and the Esquimalt peoples lived on a reserve where this area is now, where all the condos are. And Mud Bay was where they used to land the canoes. So we're working with Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations on this project. There's a welcome poll going to be going in that the Victoria International Marina is funding. This will be a stop in the Songhees, Esquimalt, First Nations interpretive trail that they're going to have going. So hopefully this will be a canoe launching spot. So next slide. You'll see so this is Mud Bay. Probably, I think this photo was probably taken in the 1880s. And so the idea that this area could be reused or as a launching site, or even just an interpretive site in the future with First Nations cooperation is going to be just a wonderful thing. Next slide, please. So with our Green Shores for Salmon, GSS, or it's now called Resilient Shorelines for Salmon.
Resilient Coast for Salmon.
Resilient Coast for Salmon. I know they keep changing it on me. Thank you, Jacqueline. The idea is that with Pacific Salmon Foundation and the Stewardship Center, some funding through Environment Canada to put in demonstration beaches. So not only Victoria International Marina Beach, but we're looking at Oak Bay at this place called Queens Beach, which is very close to Oak Bay Marina, where we'd be taking out this seawall and using this reference beach to the right as a guide to what class of sediment we would put on that beach once that seawall was taken out. Next slide. That'll be in 2023. And then Rattenberry Beach, also known as, I think it's Haynes Park Beach, Carmen, where that one egg was found.
Yes.
It's just further along towards, that's Glen Lyons School in the left-hand picture, as you're looking north, and this is looking south. So this is another beach that's not as highly impacted, but we can certainly do some work on it to make it more functional for the riparian, make the riparian area more functional for forage fish. Next slide, please. And here we go. This is Roberts Bay. So we've got quite a big project going with Sea Change Marine Conservation Society, the residents of Roberts Bay, Friends of Shoal Harbor involved, and that is to try to figure out why Roberts Bay is degrading. We know how important it is for surf smelt, because we find surf smelt there all the time in high numbers. So the beaches being deteriorating largely, we think, because of seawalls, and but climate change is also having a big impact on it. So right now we're in the middle of a project where studies being done on the eelgrass on the beach, looking at beach processes. We're also going to be looking at protecting the salt marsh at Mermaid Creek, as well as doing a test nourishment and some wave attenuation experiments to try to mitigate some of the impacts of these storms we're having. These northeast storms that we just had in the last couple of days were particularly bad for the south end of Roberts Bay. Next slide, please. Boker Creek, we've been working with the Friends of Boker Creek for about 3 or 4 years now, and this is the 30, I think it was about 28,000 chum salmon eggs came from Coldstream Hatchery. They were placed in an egg condo, you can see in the right-hand photo, and then buried in gravel at a location in Boker Creek, and they should be hatching right about now and migrating into the gravel, and hopefully they'll kickstart a chum run in Boker Creek, which would be very historic and in about 100 years since fish were last seen there. So that's kind of an exciting project. If we can get fish to come back here, then I think it's just another way of saying that, you know, we can do these things. Brings hope. Next slide, please. And another project we've got, and this was the 1,000 Rain Gardens project. So the Boker Creek project is a 100-year project. So, Gerald Harris, who you can see here with the hat on in the right-hand photo, is a leader of the Friends of Boker Creek, and he's coined the 1,000 Rain Gardens project. So we've started, we should have a couple rain gardens in on the Boker Creek watershed this year. But rain gardens are a way of taking these areas that are just basically at schools that are lawn and that are on the verge of parking lots, and connecting the storm drain system into a rain garden, which will help slow down, collect and filter the water through plants and soil prior to going into the stormwater system. So stormwater treatment in terms of water quality and water quantity detention, involving the students in the design and the construction of it, and maintenance, and the community in the maintenance as well. Okay, next slide. And I think that's it for Kyle's presentation, and maybe for it all. No, we have Francesca next. So I'll take a couple of questions right now before we move on. Okay, from Dan Kells, the Blue Carbon Project at Roberts Bay. So that is where Nikki Wright from Sea Change got a grant through World Wildlife Fund, their Blue Carbon project, which is looking at carbon that is sequestered in the ocean, basically. So either salt marshes or eelgrass or kelp and other types of plants that will sequester and hold carbon in the ocean. Okay, Dan, anybody else? Okay, on that note, I think I will turn it over to Francesca. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ian. And Katrina and Carmen, I always learn things myself at these presentations, so it's always time well spent. But thank you everybody for being here tonight. I have a very quick bunch of slides to go through, and then we'll open it up for the longer Q&A and open discussion session. So we've talked a lot about restoration, and one of the other pillars of Peninsula Streams is environmental education, which is a component of many of the things that we do, but we also have in-school programs that where we engage with youth. So I'll talk a bit about our plans for 2022, a little bit about membership, fundraising, and round it off with some hopefully interesting stats. So our environmental education programs have been on a bit of a hiatus the last few years for obvious reasons. But we're hoping that 2022 is the year where we can return to pre-COVID delivery. So we have our grade 3 education program, which will hopefully be delivered this spring. It's typically 4 weeks over May and June, where we visit 12 to 15 Saanich Peninsula schools. We deliver our watershed and salmon life cycle program to, at this point, almost 40 classes. And this is our longest running education program, started back in 2006. And so we take around our watershed model and teach kids about the water cycle and pollution prevention, and also about the salmon life cycle. We also have our grade 6-7 education program called Creatures of Habitat. And this one we are hoping to deliver in the fall. We deliver it to 3 schools, to an entire grade 6 and some 7 classes. So that's 120 to 150 kids per school. We engage in a full day of activity. So hopefully we'll be back to that full program this year. During COVID, we did carry on with Creatures to a limited extent, just doing outdoor restoration work, kind of as what you see in the photo here, working with the kids and their teachers on their school properties, taking out invasive species. And this is one of our volunteer intensive programs. We require a lot of support from our volunteers to do this. And I see a number of members here tonight who have helped out with this program, and hopefully you can we can wrangle you in again this year in the fall. And this is just a couple of pictures of our Creatures of Habitat event with Colquitt students back in the fall. Right, so membership. We ran the membership committee headed up by Jocelyn, who is here tonight, ran a very successful membership drive from November to January. We are at record numbers with, I just checked this morning, and I think it said 295 members. So we'll easily hit, surpass 300 this month. And one of the perks of membership are events like this. This is a member only event tonight. And we also, some of our volunteer work parties are only for members. We're also hoping to work with some local businesses on discounts for our members. So that's hopefully coming. Oh, and we also unfortunately this video is unavailable, but we worked with one of our members who's a professional videographer. He created some very short and sweet, 30-second long member testimonials as a way to boost our membership numbers. And those are all posted to our YouTube channel if you wanted to check those out. And if I can skip ahead, there we go. I wanted to briefly touch on and promote our online silent auction, which starts, Ian mentioned it at the beginning. It starts this Saturday, opens at 10 a.m., runs for, I think that's 8 or 9 days until Sunday. We have, at this point, about 140 really great items, ranging from affordable to maybe more of a splurge items, fishing experiences, jewelry, food and beverage. Please check it out. You can access the auction website from our webpage. So just go to peninsulastreams.ca. You'll see this big red button. Just click on that and that will take you to the auction site, which you can browse. A lot of the items are already up there, even though you can't bid on them until Saturday. So please do check that out. And just a couple more slides here. What have we been up to? I pulled together some stats from last year. We did 7 beach cleanups, which was a little less than usual, just, harder to, we had to limit volunteer numbers due to COVID, but hopefully we'll be running a lot more beach cleanups this year. We had 15 stream and riparian restoration work parties. We support and work with over 16 stewardship groups. Many representatives are here tonight. And we submitted 27 grant applications. And just some volunteer hours from 2021. We came in at just over 4,000. And 50% of those are attributed to our beach program. So the program that Carmen coordinates, so cleanups and forage fish. And just compared to previous years, we are ahead and only continuing to grow. So I just wanted to thank everybody so much for being a member. Your membership is important to us for many reasons. We hope to continue to engage with you and really thank you for your support. So thank you very much for your time and for being here tonight. And we'll just open it up now to any questions or comments. Oh, actually, before I pass it over to Ian, I did have a couple more notes. We do have a volunteer work party this Saturday. It's at Airport Woods, which is the forested area right across from the airport. We are looking for about 15 more volunteers. It would be from 10:30 till 1. If you're interested and you want more details, just email me or we can chat online now. We also have, if you are interested in what's going on in all things stewardship in the Colquitt's watershed, which includes Swan, Blenkinsop, Goward, we have a Colquitt's Coalition meeting next week on Tuesday at 6:30. It's online. So again, if you're interested in that, just reach out to me and I can send you all the details. And I think that's it. Anything to add, Ian? Or
yeah. Why don't we just see if there's any quick questions now, and I got a few closing comments. So if you could back it up to the slide behind, the previous slide too, that'd be great. Okay, so any other questions? There's a few things that we missed that I'd like to address. We're going to be releasing fish coming up into, as Katrina said, into Millstream, but also into Todd, into possibly Ray, into Tatayat creeks coming up in also in March from the hatchery. Another thing is tomorrow I'm going to be picking up some concrete. So that's in front of Ian Cameron's place with Mary Morrison's husband's help. We're going to get that piece of concrete taken out of the ocean and moved away. So that's happening tomorrow. Last week I had the awesome privilege of taking 45 Claremont grade 12 students on a tour of Swan Creek to show the wonderful work that the Friends of Swan Creek Watershed have done over the last decade. And that was very inspiring all around. I just want to say that picture of Graham Creek that Katrina had up, that turbidity was coming from a new farm. It's a fish farm, on-land fish farm, that's going to be utilizing the fish waste to generate pea greens, fertilizer for pea greens. But in the process of them stripping the land, they generated all this clay, and we raised a big stink because of what you saw, and they shut down their operations for the winter because of what they were doing, but also because we raised such a response. And that was brought to us by our stewards in the watershed. I want to the last thing I'm going to say is that this photo here that you're looking at is the Sinanis Island invasive species event. And we haven't had one since 2019 because of COVID. And you can see this was the 2019 event, and we brought everybody out in boats to Sinanis Island out in Brentwood Bay. And it's a reserve. It also was a burial island for children back in the day for First Nations. And we've been working, Dennis Coupland has been a spearhead of this with Sartlip First Nations and lots and lots of volunteers. So many of you have been out there. We are going to go back in May. So sometime around the same time as the annual general meeting, probably the weekend before, the weekend after, we will have an event out at Sinanis Island. So I'm really looking forward to doing that again. I think many of you are. So it's a really great experience. All right, well, I think that's it. We're probably close to time. Is there any last questions or comments before we go? Ian.
Just one, Ian. It's not so much the